Hello listeners, welcome to the Knowledge Nexus. Today we're diving deep into a book that challenges everything you think about motivation and action. It's 5 a.m. in downtown Manhattan. The city sleeps, but a small coffee cart near Grand Central Terminal has already opened for business. Sitting nearby is Marcus, a 30-year-old software engineer. His eyes are heavy with sleep, his mind weighed down with doubt. He clutches his phone, screen dark, holding it like a lifeline. Today is his job interview. The same interview he's been postponing for 6 months with the same excuse, "I'll start preparing tomorrow." Marcus isn't lazy. In college, he excelled academically. Friends considered him intelligent and capable. But for the past 2 years, his life has been frozen in place. He lost his previous job. Family expectations weigh heavily on him. Every morning, he wakes up thinking the same thing: "I don't feel like it today." He believes that to work effectively, you must first feel good internally. Until your mind is ready, studying or effort seems pointless. This belief has slowly imprisoned him. Even before leaving for the interview, the same state persists. His heart pounds rapidly. His mind screams, "You're not prepared. Don't go. Not today, maybe tomorrow." Fear grips him. Confidence eludes him. He feels that until he experiences motivation, any action is wasted. Lost in this mental battle, he sits at the coffee cart. The vendor, who sees him daily, speaks up, "You're here early today, friend." Marcus forces a weak smile. "Going somewhere?" "Yes, I have an interview." "Then go. Why sit here thinking?" Marcus replies, "I don't feel ready." The vendor laughs and says, "Feelings don't show up on schedule, my friend. Move your feet, your mind will follow." This line pierces Marcus's thoughts: "Move your feet, your mind will follow." He's stunned that a simple coffee vendor could articulate such profound truth. Marcus stands up, pays for his coffee, and without overthinking, walks toward the station. In that moment, there's no rush of enthusiasm. No special surge of motivation. He simply moves forward. Even on the train, fear lingers. His mind whispers, "You're foolish. You'll fail." But his body has already committed to motion. He opens his notes. Reviews a few questions. Flips through some materials. As he reads, he realizes, "Wait, I actually know this." Within minutes, his mind begins to settle. The fear doesn't disappear completely, but it diminishes enough that he feels capable of facing the interview. The interview goes reasonably well, not spectacular, but not terrible either. Walking out, he feels an unusual sense of peace. He thinks to himself, "If I had waited for the right feeling today, I'd still be sitting at home." This is the first time Marcus realizes that feeling good before taking action isn't necessary. Sometimes, taking action is what creates the good feeling. This connects directly to what James Clear describes in Atomic Habits: behavior change doesn't start with motivation. It starts with identity and tiny actions. Marcus discovered what neuroscience confirms: action precedes emotion, not the other way around. Our brains are wired to adjust feelings based on what we're doing, not what we're thinking about doing. After the interview, Marcus's life doesn't transform overnight. He doesn't get the job immediately. But something else shifts: his perspective. He decides he won't wait for the right feeling anymore. The next morning, his alarm rings. The same old voice echoes, "I don't feel like it today." The difference? Now Marcus doesn't treat that voice as truth. He gets up. Without overthinking, he puts on his shoes and steps outside for a walk. 5 minutes in, his mind still feels heavy. But 10 minutes later, his body warms up. His breathing deepens. 30 minutes in, he's surprised at himself. Why didn't I want to come out? He creates a simple rule for himself, just take the first step. Need to study? Open the book, not the whole chapter, just open it. Need to exercise? Put on your shoes, not the full workout, just the shoes. Need to update your resume? Open your laptop, not the entire file, just open it. Gradually, he notices that most days, his mind cooperates along the way. And even when it doesn't, some work still gets done. One day, a friend asks, "How did you change so much?" Marcus answers, "I didn't change. I just stopped waiting." Waiting for what? For the feeling. He's understood that feelings are deceptive. They say, feel good first, then act. But the truth is often reversed, act first. The good feeling will follow. Cal Newport's deep work addresses this same principle. Professional success doesn't come from inspiration. It comes from structured action regardless of mood. Marcus learned what top performers know: waiting for motivation is a form of procrastination disguised as wisdom. A few months later, Marcus lands a small job at a tech startup. The salary isn't high, but for him, it's a major victory. On his first day heading to the office, fear is still there. Confidence isn't complete. But he does what he's learned, moves his feet forward. During the first week, much of the work confuses him. He often feels inadequate for the role. The old Marcus would have stopped, paralyzed by this fear. But now, he works alongside the fear. He asks questions, takes notes, makes mistakes, and learns incrementally every day. A year later, that same Marcus is leading a team at the company. A new employee joins, someone in exactly the same state Marcus once was. Fearful. Doubtful. Procrastinating. One day, the newcomer says, "Sir, I don't feel like it today. I'll start fresh tomorrow." Marcus smiles. Don't wait for the feeling. Just start. What if the feeling never comes? Marcus replies, then nothing changes. But if you start, the feeling has a much better chance of showing up. This mirrors what Ray Dalio teaches in Principles: successful people don't wait for perfect conditions. They create progress through radical acceptance of reality and systematic action. Marcus discovered that confidence is a byproduct of action, not a prerequisite. Marcus now understands that most people stay stuck because they wait for a specific internal state: motivation, confidence, excitement. But the reality is these feelings often arrive after action begins, not before. He also learns that action doesn't always mean a grand gesture. Sometimes it's just standing up from the chair, opening a book, or writing a single email. That small action signals to the brain, we've started moving. Over time, Marcus's confidence grows. But now he doesn't depend on it. If fear strikes on any given day, he moves forward with fear as his companion. Fear doesn't mean stop. It just means you're doing something that matters. Today, he still hears that old voice sometimes. I don't feel like it today. The difference? Now he places that voice in the back seat of the car and sits in the driver's seat himself. He still remembers what the coffee vendor said: move your feet, your mind will follow. It wasn't a motivational quote. It was just life's simple truth. Marcus's life isn't a movie script. There's no sudden wealth, no magic transformation. There's just this: he stopped believing that action depends on emotion. He realized that emotion often depends on action. And perhaps that's why he's calmer now. Because he no longer asks himself, "How do I feel?" He asks, "What's the next small step?" And then he takes it. Because he's witnessed this truth in his own life: when the body moves forward, the mind has no choice but to follow. Marcus's life has changed, but fear and anxiety haven't completely vanished. The difference is that now, he doesn't stop. One day, his company announces that Marcus will present to a major client. This is his first time speaking in front of such high-level executives. The moment he hears the meeting date, his stomach churns. His heart races. The old thoughts flood in. You won't speak well. If you make a mistake in front of everyone. If you can't answer their questions. The old Marcus would have stayed awake all night trying to eliminate the fear. He would have watched motivational videos, tried to convince himself everything would be fine. But the more he fought the fear, the stronger it became, like trying to turn off a radio that only gets louder. Now, Marcus approaches it differently. That evening, he returns from the office. Sets his bag aside. Sits quietly on the couch. Holds his phone but doesn't feel like looking at it. He clearly feels the anxiety. For the first time, he doesn't try to fight himself. He says internally, "Yes, I'm scared." Not "fear is wrong." Not "fear shouldn't be here." He doesn't try to remove the fear. He simply accepts it. Accepting the fear doesn't make it more frightening. It actually lightens the load. Like setting down a heavy bag. Fear is still there, but the battle against it has ended. This Japanese concept, Arugamama, accepting things as they are, parallels what Eckhart Tolle describes in The Power of Now. Marcus learned that resistance to internal states creates more suffering than the states themselves. Acceptance isn't surrender, it's strategic wisdom. That night, Marcus recalls something he once read about a Japanese principle called Arugamama, accepting things as they are. Not rushing to change them. Not insisting they be fixed. Simply acknowledging, this is the current reality. Marcus feels he's doing exactly that. He's not trying to eliminate fear. He's just acknowledging, right now, I am afraid. The next day at the office, his hands tremble slightly. He repeatedly feels unprepared. Yet he opens the presentation file, with fear. Previously, he thought, first become confident, then prepare. Now he thinks, whether I'm confident or not doesn't matter. The file needs to be opened. He reviews the slides. Some make sense. Some don't. His mind whispers, this is too difficult. But he doesn't ask fear if it will leave. He just does the next small task. Fixes one slide. Then another. With each hour of preparation, fear doesn't disappear. But it transforms. Before, fear was blocking him. Now, fear sits beside him. Like a quiet companion walking along. On presentation day, Marcus wakes up feeling terrible. Breakfast doesn't go down properly. His throat is dry. His heart says, something's going to go wrong today. Previously, he would have forced himself to calm down. Now, he simply says, okay. Today I'm nervous. Standing outside the meeting room, he takes a deep breath, not to banish fear, but to steady his body. Fear remains. When his name is called, he walks in. His steps feel heavy. His voice shakes initially. He knows the people watching can see his nervousness. And for the first time, it doesn't matter to him. He says internally, yes, I'm nervous. And still, I'm speaking. As he continues, his voice steadies somewhat. Fear doesn't fully vanish, but it doesn't obstruct his work. Questions come. Some he can't answer properly. He says clearly, I'll update you on this later. The meeting ends. He walks out. There's no victory celebration inside him. But there's deep relief. He doesn't think, I wasn't afraid. He thinks, I was afraid, and still I managed. That becomes his biggest lesson. What Marcus discovered aligns with what Brené Brown teaches in Daring Greatly: courage isn't the absence of fear. It's action in the presence of fear. Marcus stopped waiting for bravery and simply moved forward with vulnerability intact. After that day, Marcus builds a new relationship with his internal emotions. He no longer fights them. If boredom strikes, he doesn't tell himself, don't be bored. He simply acknowledges, today feels boring, and still begins the work. If sadness arrives, he doesn't try to force happiness. He drinks tea with sadness, goes for a walk, and does what's necessary. Gradually, he observes that emotions are like weather, they come and go. If you wait every time for the weather to change, you'll never leave the house. But if you learn to walk in the rain with an umbrella, the path doesn't stop. Arugamama doesn't mean Marcus gave up. It means he stopped fighting reality. Reality is this: sometimes he's scared. Sometimes confused. Sometimes exhausted. And that's all part of being human. Marcus has learned not to wait for fear to disappear. But a new struggle emerges: confusion. Fear no longer stops him. Yet he finds himself stuck somewhere else. This isn't fear. It's confusion. After 2 years at the company, he's improved significantly. Responsibilities have grown. But a question keeps surfacing: what's the next step? Sometimes he thinks he should advance within the company. Sometimes he considers starting his own venture. Sometimes a completely different field crosses his mind. Every option seems both right and wrong. Marcus thinks he needs complete clarity first. A crystal clear picture of what to do, how to do it, when to do it. He tells himself, when everything becomes clear, I'll decide. And here, he gets stuck again. He goes to the office daily, works, but remains internally restless. Life feels like it's entered waiting mode. He reads books, watches videos, seeks advice, everywhere searching for the same thing, which is the right path. The more he thinks, the heavier his mind becomes. Every new thought cancels the previous one. No decision solidifies. One Thursday evening, Marcus meets his old college friend, Amit. Amit recently quit his job and started a small venture. Though not yet successful, there's unusual peace on his face. Over coffee, Marcus asks, weren't you afraid? Amit laughs. Very afraid. Then how did you decide? Amit pauses, then says, I didn't decide. I just started. Marcus looks at him, surprised. Meaning? Meaning everything wasn't clear to me either. I didn't know if this would work. But if I had waited until everything became clear, I'd still be at that same job. But without a plan. Amit replies, there was a plan, but not a perfect one. And it never becomes perfect anyway. This statement sticks in Marcus's mind. He realizes he's not waiting for fear. He's waiting for clarity. And this waiting is just as dangerous. On the way home, he asks himself, what if clarity never comes? This mirrors Reid Hoffman's philosophy in The Startup of You. If you wait for complete information, you'll never start. Clarity emerges from action, not contemplation. Marcus learned what entrepreneurs know: perfect plans are fantasies. Progress comes from imperfect action. Over the next few days, Marcus lives with this question. He begins to understand that most of his confusion comes from thinking, not from a lack of action. One day at the office, he's offered a new project. It's different work requiring new skills. It's outside his comfort zone. Previously, he would have thought, let me first figure out if this is right for my career. But now he catches himself. This is exactly what he's been doing, waiting for clarity. He tells himself, I don't know right now if this is right. But there's only one way to find out. And he says yes. The project begins. In the early weeks, he feels he made a mistake. The work is difficult. Many things don't make sense. He often feels unsuited for this role. But each week, something new becomes clearer. He starts understanding whether he enjoys this type of work. Where his strengths lie. Where his weaknesses are. 6 months later, looking back, he sees clearly, if he had only kept thinking, he'd still be standing in the same place. Marcus now understands a crucial principle: overthinking doesn't bring clarity. Movement brings clarity. When his company offers a transfer to another city, his first reaction is, let me think this through completely. Housing. Expenses. Loneliness. Making new friends. Questions line up in his mind. The old Marcus would have spent months in this mental loop. But now he's grasped something: excessive thinking doesn't create clarity. Clarity emerges while walking. He makes a list, considers basic factors, and says yes to the transfer. The beginning in the new city isn't easy. There's loneliness. Unfamiliar routes. Many evenings he sits in his room wondering if he made the right choice. But with each passing week, the city becomes more familiar. He meets new people. New habits form. One day, standing on his balcony looking at the street below, it suddenly hits him: if he had kept waiting for clarity, none of this would have happened. Marcus discovered what the author E.L. Doctorow famously said. Writing is like driving at night in the fog. You can only see as far as your headlights, but you can make the whole trip that way. Life doesn't reveal the entire path, just the next step. And that's enough. Marcus no longer fears his mind's negative voices. He listens but doesn't live by them. Work continues. Life moves forward. Yet one thing still exhausts him internally: the constant mental chatter. Every morning commuting to the office via subway, a voice appears: you're not that special. While working, a small mistake triggers: see. This is exactly what we expected from you. During meetings, when a senior speaks, everyone understands you're weak. Previously, Marcus was deeply troubled by these voices. He believed that until his mind quieted, he couldn't work effectively. He would try to convince himself, don't think like that. Think positive. Everything's fine. But the more he fought these thoughts, the louder they became, like a radio that increases volume when you try to turn it off. One day, the office has a critical project deadline. The team is working late. It's 9 p.m. Marcus stares at code on the screen, but his mind is elsewhere. If this project fails, if everyone's expectations collapse, if this proves you're not capable, the thought spiral seems endless. Previously, he might have stopped working, gone home, or tried to motivate himself. But now he thinks differently. He remembers a recent office event: lots of noise, people talking, laughing, music playing. In that chaos, he could still converse with someone standing next to him. The noise existed, but he didn't fight it. He didn't try to silence it. He just focused on his conversation. That night, a realization strikes: negative thoughts in the mind are like that noise. They'll exist. They'll speak. They won't stop. But does every voice require a response? This technique from acceptance and commitment therapy detailed in The Happiness Trap by Russ Harris, teaches exactly what Marcus discovered: you don't have to believe every thought. Thoughts are mental events, not facts. Observing without engaging is a skill that transforms performance. For the first time, Marcus tries something new. He doesn't argue with the thoughts. He doesn't try to prove them wrong. He simply says, "Okay, keep talking." Then he looks at the screen and writes the next line of code. Thoughts continue arriving, but Marcus isn't wrestling with them anymore. Gradually, his focus returns to work. The work completes. The project submits. On the way home, he realizes, today the mind wasn't quiet. Still, work got done. This is a major discovery for him. He understands that a clear mind isn't necessary for work. What's necessary is simply not letting the mind's chatter sit in the driver's seat. Over the next few weeks, he experiences this more. Whenever a negative thought appears, "You're not as good as others, you'll fall behind, you'll fail," he just notices it, like background music playing. He doesn't ask why the thought came. He doesn't question if it's right or wrong. He just does the next small task. Marcus no longer battles his mind's voices. He listens but doesn't operate based on them. Work flows. Life progresses. But one burden still wears him down internally: the weight of results. With every project comes a question: what if this succeeds? And the bigger question: what if it fails? He works hard, but a large part of his mind remains trapped in result anxiety. One day, the company assigns him to lead a critical project. If successful, his reputation strengthens. If not, questions arise. The moment this news surfaces, unusual tension grips Marcus. Before work even begins, his mind jumps to the future. If the client isn't happy? If the team doesn't perform? If everything fails because of me? He isn't working yet but already feels exhausted. What Marcus is about to learn echoes what psychologists call outcome independence, a principle detailed in The Inner Game of Tennis by Timothy Galway. He's discovering what peak performers know. Attachment to outcomes destroys present moment effectiveness. Focus on process, not results. One evening, Marcus returns home with a heavy heart. He barely eats dinner. Just stands on the balcony, staring down. He remembers something his father once said. In childhood, when he played baseball and struck out, he would cry. His father would say, "Focus on your swing. Whether you get a hit or not, that's secondary." Back then, he didn't understand. Today, it suddenly becomes clear. Marcus realizes he's watching the scoreboard instead of playing the shot. Before every ball, he's thinking, will it be a boundary or will I get caught? And that's why his game is suffering. The next day at the office, he makes a small decision. He tells himself, my job is to make the right effort. The result isn't my job. This is easy to say but hard to implement. While planning, his mind interrupts, will this prove right or not? He stops himself and says, right now, just ensure the next step is honest. When the client sets high expectations in meetings, Marcus's heart races. Previously, he'd think, I must deliver this. Now he thinks, I'll give my complete effort. Beyond that, it's not in my control. Gradually, his work approach transforms. Now he's more present during work. Before, he'd work halfway and worry about results halfway. Now he focuses entirely on the work. Strangely, work quality improves, not because he became more talented, but because his mind isn't trapped in fear. One day, a team member says, "Sir, what if the client doesn't like this part?" Previously, Marcus might have gotten frustrated. Now he calmly responds, let's make it as good as we can. Whether they like it or not isn't our job. The team sees him this calm for the first time. The deadline arrives. The presentation happens. Some aspects go very well. Some raise questions. Previously, Marcus would have considered every question a personal failure. Now he just listens, neither defensive nor panicked. The meeting ends. The client says they'll share the final decision later. Marcus walks out. Previously, this waiting would have killed him. Now he simply knows, I did what was in my hands. Like a farmer who plants seeds, waters them, works hard, but doesn't dig up the soil daily to check if seeds have sprouted, Marcus learned to do his work and let life do its work. Control what you can control. Release what you can't. After the project, Marcus's life seems somewhat stable. But life has a habit of presenting new tests. This time, it's not fear or results. This time, it's the burden of sheer volume. The company decides to overhaul a major system. Entire workflows will change. New technology. New tools. New responsibilities. Marcus is assigned to lead this transformation. On day one, when he sees the complete list, his mind goes numb. So much work. So many steps. So many things he doesn't know. His body is in the chair, but his mind is preparing to flee. This is too much. How will all this happen? What if something gets missed? It's the old state returning, not from fear, not from results, but from sheer overwhelm. Previously, Marcus would try convincing himself. It'll all get managed. Or he'd get stuck in planning paralysis. Now he stops himself. He closes the laptop. Stands up. Drinks a glass of water. And asks himself one question, what's the smallest possible step right now? Not understanding the entire system. Not training the whole team. The smallest step is, opening a document. Just opening it. Not writing. Not understanding. He opens his laptop, creates a blank file, and types a name, new system notes. That's it. His mind says, what will this achieve? Marcus doesn't answer. For the next 10 minutes, he writes just one small thing about the old system. Not the whole thing. Just one part. Then he closes the file. He feels lighter. Work isn't complete, but the fear has cracked slightly. Psychology research confirms what Marcus is experiencing. The Zeigarnik effect shows that starting a task, even incompletely, creates mental momentum. Breaking massive projects into micro-actions isn't just practical, it's neurologically strategic. This is why Getting Things Done by David Allen emphasizes next action thinking. The next day, Marcus does the same. Not intending to finish the work. Just 5 minutes. Sometimes he only understands a single term. Sometimes he only takes a screenshot. Sometimes he only writes a question, how does this work? Gradually, those small notes transform into a framework. What once looked like a mountain breaks into small stones. Marcus remembers he's used this strategy before. When he struggled to wake up in the morning, he made a rule to just put on his shoes. Now the same principle works here. A week later, there's a team meeting. Marcus fears people will ask questions he can't answer. Previously, he'd wait until he understood everything before holding a meeting. Now he schedules the meeting. He tells the team clearly, I don't know everything. We'll learn together in small steps. The team breathes a sigh of relief because they're nervous internally too. They decide, today we'll only understand one module. Not the entire system. After the meeting, Marcus is tired but satisfied, because the task was small, it got done. One evening returning from the office, Marcus meets the new employee. He looks troubled. Sir, there's so much work. I don't know where to start. Marcus smiles. If you forget about all the work, what's the smallest step possible? The guy says, maybe just creating a folder. Then do that. Next day, the guy returns, Sir, I only created a folder, but then I also saved 2 files. Marcus laughs. He knows this is the method. Small steps trick the mind. The mind sees danger in big tasks, not small ones. When tasks are small, the mind doesn't enter fight or flight mode. It just does. Within a few months, the entire system changes. Mistakes happen. Work is slow. But work doesn't stop. Marcus feels that his life's biggest transformations never happened all at once. They were always built from small steps. That day when he stood up from the coffee cart and walked toward the station, that was a small step. When he accepted fear, that was a small step. When he released results and focused on effort, that was a small step. Now he sees clearly, life doesn't change through leaps. Life changes through steps. One night, he sits on the balcony. Tea in hand. City sounds below. He thinks about how many times he stopped himself because the task seemed too big. And how many times he managed to begin because he made the task very small. This is what Darren Hardy describes in The Compound Effect: massive success comes from small, consistent actions compounded over time. Marcus's journey proves that transformation isn't about dramatic moments. It's about unglamorous consistency in tiny behaviors. Today, Marcus still gets confused sometimes. Everything still isn't clear to him. But now he doesn't stop. Because he's witnessed this truth in his own life, new thinking doesn't emerge from sitting in old rooms. New thinking emerges from taking new steps. You don't change your life by thinking about it. You change your life by living it. And that's why Marcus no longer waits for clarity. He walks. Because while walking, the path reveals itself. His mind still races toward results sometimes. Fear still appears occasionally. But now he tells himself, my job is effort, not the decision. And then he takes the next step, light-hearted, open-handed, without clinging. And that's what allows him to keep moving forward. The art of taking action isn't about becoming fearless, perfectly motivated, or completely clear.